Hilchish Gogis Pedik Chi. Al Chomish Averis Mevi Osham Vuan Nikra Osham Vade. So until now we learned the halachas of a chatos, the 43 averes that you bring a chatos, and in a chatos gufa there's kind of different chatos. There's a chatos of a hedjit, the chatos of a melech, a chatos of a ken gadol. There's different types of chatos, and if there's a suffix of yechayiv a chatos, there's a chiv of an oshim toli, and then a chatos also generally a chatos of a hedjit and a keva. There's a musik called chatos amesis. There's kama dinim and a chatos, and now there's another type of carbon which is called the carbon osham, which has different dinim. And that comes for 5 chatois, an osham vade. Why is it al achomish avedis maybe osham who are nikra osham vade? Why is it called an osham vade? Shari eini bo mishum sofik osham vade as opposed to osham toli, which we learned about in Perik Shmini. Ve'eloheim al shivcha charufa. Shivcha charufa is a chotzi shivcha v'chotzi baschen, which is married to an evadivri. So that's a shivcha charufa. A bal shivcha charufa. Or valagezel, someone that owes money to someone and he swears falsely. It says he doesn't owe money, as the Ram will soon say. Valameila, someone that was male behegdish b'shgaga. Or valtumas nazir, someone that was a nazir and he became tamei. So the process of after he becomes tamei in the time, so that's in going back into becoming again a nazir, becoming toyer. So that's what he brings the karbonis. One of those karbonis is a carbon asham. And also, Valatzaras, Kshiyitim Mimeno, Mitzera, when he's becoming Torah, also brings an Osham. Asham Mitzera. Now, Shivcha Charufa Ketzat, Habo al Shivcha Charufa, someone that was born a Shivcha Charufa, again, a Chatzi Shivcha v'Chatzi Baschen, that was married to an Evadivri, Bein Bezodin, Bein Bishgaga, so either way is Mevi Osham. He has to bring an Osham. There's a special din that it brings a carbon, whether he was a Mazid or a Shegig, when he was a Baal Shivcha Charufa. When does he bring an osham? Is only Shatia Gedela. The Shivcha Charufa herself has to be a Gedela. Normally, a person is mechuyev for bias asuris when the one that he was bail was a bas shalashon v'yemechot, because that's what the biyasa bia. Over here, it's not enough that she should be biyasa bia. Over here, she has to be a bas to get malchus, because the din is that you only bring an osham, a sham Shivcha Charufa, if the Isha, if the Shivcha herself is going to get Malkus, and for her to get Malkus, she has to be a Gdela. So he says, first of all, Vushati a Gdela, she has to be a Gdela. Anu Mizida, she's doing it b'meiza du bertzena, she wasn't forced. So in other words, she's a Bas Malkus. And also, V'tia Bu'ula. Tia Bu'ula means before this Bia of being boiled, the Shivcha Charufa, she was already Nivala. Now, she didn't have to be Nivala Kedarka, as long as she was Nivala. And Ukedarka, you have to add, Ukedarka means the over here, the person that's being chayiv the osham is being boil her kedarka. He's being boil her kedarka, and also ubigmar bia, that there was a gmar bia. No, he wasn't bailed. Normally hara, which is a tchilas bia, also has the din of a bia. But over here, in order for the boil to be chayiv and osham, it was only if he was boil kedarka, and also normally kedarka and shalei kedarka is also the same thing. But over here, there's a special din that it has to be kedarka. And it has to be Gemar Bia, Kedei Shetilka. Now this Kedei Shetilka is going on why she has to be a Gdela and she has to be a Mezido Bertzena. Shenamar, the Pasuk says Bikedes Tia, and then it says Vehevius Hashame. So Bikedes Tia means he loika. And Vehevius Hashame means Vehu Mevi Carbon. Mipi Hashmuel Lamdu, Shebizman Shehi Chayev Es Malkis, that's when Hu Chayev Carbon. Bizman Shehi Pturim in a Malkis, Hu Patum in a Carbon. So it's nachmal. So the din is that a person that was a boil, a shivcha charufa, so he's chayiv carbon whether he did it b'shegig or b'vezid, but only on the condition. First of all, the condition is that she was a gedola and a mazido b'rtzeina, so therefore she's a bas malkis, and also she should be a bu'ula. She has to be a bu'ula from before. In other words, this bia of being boil, the shivcha charufa, is after she was already a bu'ula from before. And also that this be'ilah of being boiled the shivcha charufa, which is chayiv osham, has to be kedarka. It shouldn't be a bia shalei kedarka. Again, the fact that she was a be'ula could have been shalei kedarka. The fact, because that's also called a be'ula. But the bia now, this bia which is being mechayiv the osham, that has to be dafka if it was kedarka, and also it has to be a gmar bia. There has to be a gmar bia. So again, that he's chayiv an osham whether he was a shegig or a mezid, on the condition that she gets malchus, and also the condition is that that she was already a bu'ula, and that he was a boil kedarka, and there was a gemar bia. And we learned that out from the Kedis Tia Behavius Hashami. So we learn out he Leika and who maybe is a carbon, that when she gets malchus, that's when he brings carbon. Halacha Gimel, Ben Tesha Shanim V'Yemechot, Shabal Shifcha Charufa, is he Leika, because she did an Aveda, and she was a Gdela and a Mezida with all the Pratim, and Vahu, maybe carbon, and he brings carbon. The Rebbe learns over here that the Pshat is, that it's not the Pshat, there's a Chi of carbon because of the Avera he did. Because if the Chi of carbon would be because of the Avera he did, so how could you be Mechayiv a cotton for an Avera he did? The Pshat is there's a din that since Lepel, he was the cause that she should be Chayiv Malkus, so that the fact that he was the cause for her to be Chayiv Malkus, that causes that she should be Chayiv, that he should be Chayiv a carbon. The Rebbe compares it to like a behema yaregu. If a person lived with a behema, so the din is you kill the behema. It's not because the behema did an avera. Because the behema was the cause for this person to do this avera, so that causes the behema yaregu. Al-Daraz over here, since he was the cause for her to have this chi of malchus, so that brings out the chi of carbon. And therefore, even though he was a cotton, so it's not, you don't have tightness to him for doing what he did, but nevertheless, memela is chai of the chi of carbon. And then the Ram continues, v'yiroli, she'ini mevi, atchiyagel, v'yirbi das. Because since sof kol sof, you're saying there's a chi of carbon because he caused this, but for him to actually have the chi to actually bring the carbon. Whereas the chales chi came not because he did something wrong, because he caused this to happen. But there's a chales chiyuv, so how could he fulfill the chales chiyuv? The chales chiyuv could only be filled. The role of the Rambam is that it can only be fulfilled when he's a god. And that is a kasha, because there's a din that a nazir, that was a mufla samach ish could be noider ben nazir. And the Rambam paskins that he brings karbonesov. He brings karbonesov. So l'chura, over there we have a metzias of a cotton that's becoming a nazir, and he's bringing his karbonis as a nazir, as a cotton. So why is over here he became mechuyev of karbanis, and nevertheless he has to wait till he's a gadol. Over there we don't see that he has to wait till he's a gadol. So in that the Griz said, the Ramar brings from the Griz that over there it's not pshat he has a chiyuv to bring the carbon. And knows another when he brings the karbanis, that's when he finishes his nazirs. And a gadol can bring the karbanis on behalf of the nazirs. That's a toucher. Maybe karbanis means he could bring his karbanis because lepel, since he's a nazir, there was a chalesh shem nazir. So you can bring the korbanos, but again, the chales chiyuv is not there. And al derazev, Yeroli, the Rambam is saying, she'ini maybe there's no chiyuv at sheyagdu. Halacha dalet. Kfar biyanu behilchas bias asuris, mahi hashivcho hamura b'teira. That's number one. And v'she'enon chayovim at sheyivil kedarka, and v'yigmer, that should be a gemar bia lefichach. Im omru leishnayim ba'alta shivcha charufa, and therefore you're chayev in a carbon. Who aimer leiba alti is naman ve'eni mevi carbon alpia. Why? Sharihu yedeya im gomer biyase ele gomer. Only he knows if gomer biyase ele gomer, and therefore v'zeh shomer leiba alti. When he's saying leiba alti, kalema legomarti. So therefore, when he says leiba alti, we just like we had before that when a person says leasisi, we interpret it to mean leasisi shegagos amazing. So over here also, when he says leiba alti, we understand it to mean that leiba alti means legomarti. And therefore he's not chayiv. Now, Lemaisa, the Ramar brings from Milchas Chinuch that he is believed to say lebalti, which means legomarti. But lepel she's not really tiny. She doesn't know, and therefore she's taken mechuyev karm. She's mechuyev malchus. That she is taken mechuyev malchus, even though he's tiny legomarti. You know, the Edom are saying that they saw the bia. And we assume that the pashtus is if there was the bia, there was the gemar bia. So it's the stam and astam. If there was the bia, so there was the gemar bia. And therefore she's chayiv malchus. That's what Minchas Chinuch says. Which is a little bit of stira. I mean, it's like a little bit not the same like we learned before. That the way the Rebbe is learning, that the pshat is that his chi of carbon is because he was mechayiv malchus. And the whole chi of carbon is coming because he was mechayiv malchus. It's not because he did something. Chiv Korban because he was Mechayiv Malchus. If over here you're saying he's Mechayiv Malchus, the he was Mechayiv Malchus. And on the other end you're saying that he's not Chayiv Korban. L'chura, if the vart is that the Chiv Korban is not for the Maisa, but rather for the Chiv Malchus, so it's very hard to understand how you could split the two. I'm saying you need a beer maybe to see whether this beer of the Rebbe would stem with this Minchas Chinuch. Halacha Hey. Habo ala shivcha bias harbe. Is any chayiv el oshem echad. He was baal shivcha bias harbe. Lepel is only chayiv oshem echad. The pastor she's chayiv kama malchus. Whereas if there was many asrois, so she's mechuyev malchus on each time, b'kedus tia. But lepeil, he is only chayiv oshem echad ketzad. Habal hashivcha bias harbi bezodin. Eshebal le b'shgoga and v'nedale v'chazer bal le b'shgoga v'nedale afilu me'apam b'mei halamas. His lepeil is makriv oshem echad. He only brings one oshem u'miskaper alakiv. Alas deinas sheba sayan des deinas v'ala shgagos. So al-Khura, we're talking about only him. He's Takachayev only one Oshim, but she is Chayev many Malkas. Bamedvar Mamurim, that he's only Chayev one Oshim, even though he was Bias Harbe, and there was Ba'alamas Harbe, and there was Bizdenis Bishgogas. If we're dealing with Shifchachas, there's one Shifcha. Aval al-Ba, Shvachas Harbe, Afilu Behelamachas. So then Chayev Oshim, al Kol Shifcha v'Shifcha. Even if it was B'Shegig, and it was Behelamachas, but the Pale is Chayev Oshim, al Kol Shifcha v'Shifcha. And obviously, in that case, each shivcha v'shivcha gets malchus. Each one is getting malchus, and he is chayiv also a separate osham for each shivcha. Is nachamol. So when a person is ba'ala ala shivcha, so she gets malchus. We're talking about only in a case where she gets malchus. He's mechuyev karbon. He's ba'ala shivcha kama pa'amim, even though he was b'shegig and it was b'kama halamis, it was b'zadin, and kama pa'amim was b'zadin. And l'chura, she's getting malchus for each time, but nevertheless, he is only chayiv one oshel. If it's more than one shivcha, then he's chayiv for each shivcha. Halacha vav, baal shivcha, and then v'hifresh hashami. So he realized he's mechuyev an oshel, she's mechuyev malchus, he was hifresh hashami, and then v'chazer ba'olah achash hifresh hashami, and then he was bailer again. So the din is chayiv al kolachas v'achas, and again, obviously, the second time she's again chayiv malchus. Whereas if she's not chayiv malchus for the second time, so then he's not going to be chayiv either. Whereas he can't be chayiv an osham if she's not chayiv malchus. In other words, he was baal shivcha, and she's chayiv malchus, and the hifresh hashami, and then the chazer ba'olah achash hifresh hashama, and now again she's chayiv malchus, is chayiv kolachas v'achas. Shehafrosh mechalekas, since he was mafresh hakarbon, so therefore it's mechalekas. V'nimtze k'misha hikra. In other words, you can't be miskaper with an osham, with an osham that you already mafresh. Whereas this person was already mafresh the osham, and that this osham was already for the previous avera. Now he does a new avera. He can't be mischaper with this avera with an osham that he was already makriv, just like which he was already mafresh. Just like if he would have been makriv this osham, he obviously wouldn't have been able to be miskaper on this new avera with an osham that he was miskaper. So who adin? He came in miskaper with on this new avera with an osham which he was already makriv. V'nimsa k'misha hikriv achar kach bo. A person was boil lepel b'shivcha achas chamish be'ilas with a helam achas, and lepel v'nedel le'alachas mem and v'hifresh hashami, and he was only mafresh hashami for one be'ilah, and v'achar kach nedel le'alashniya. Then he realized about the second one, and then again he was mafresh hashami. So this osham that he was mafresh for the first lepel, now he was nedel le'al the second. He becomes mechuyev on the second as well. Mafresh Osham Acher is Aval Pisha Behelim Echad Hayikulam. Originally they were Behelim Echad, or Behel V'li Nedale, Ela Acher Shehifresh. Lepel, he only was Nedale, Acher Shehifresh, is Nimtza Kebeil Acher Shehifresh, Shedin HaShegig V'hamezed V'shivcha Echadu. So if it would be just Nedale V'chazav Nedale, so just like originally, person comes along and he was a Beil Shivcha, and he realized he did an Avera, and then again he was Beil the Shivcha, so he's only Chayiv Achas. Al derav zeh, if a person was bail behelam achas, and then he realized that he was bail one, he didn't do anything, and then he realized again he was bail the second one, and again he didn't do anything. So just like in the original shtei alamas, he's only chayav one. So now when there was two neidolei, so even though by a chatas he would have been chayav two, neidolei v'chazav and neidolei, but over here he's only chayav one. Masha'enkin over here, since he was neidolei and he was mafresh a carbon, and then he was again neidolei, so then he's mechuyev to bring a carbon for the second nidli. That's the vart. That's the vart. Let's read halacha again. Baal shivcha v'hifresh hasham. A person was baal shivcha, and then he was mafresh the yosham, and then the chazer baal la'achas shehifresh hashami. So chayiv al kolachas v'achas. Shahafrasha mechalekas. Yedia wouldn't have been mechalekas, but hafrasha is mechalekas. The nimtza k'misha hikra v'chakach baal v'chein. In Baal Chamish Be'ilas Behelam Achas B'Shivcha Achas. Mele Be'etzem, if he finds out about all five of them, or even if he finds about all five of them separately, he'll only be Mechuyev one. And now, V'noidol Le'alachas Mem V'hifresh Hashami. V'achar kach Neidol Hashniya is Mafresh Hashem Acher. Aval B'She Behelam Echad Hoyu Kulam. Aber hel v'le nedele el achar shehifrish is nimtza kebei achar shehifrish. Shedin hashegig v'amezid b'shivcha echadu. But so Memela, so Lepel, since he was mafresh Hashamei, so once he was mafresh Hashamei, so it's only chal on what he knew about. But She'enki, what he didn't know about, so now he finds out again, so that's not going to help. He can't use for what he finds out again with the Osham that he was already mafresh. Now, but Pashtus, if he would have been makriv the Osham, so, and he wouldn't have been noidole on the second one, so then just like we learned before, that if a person has he did two averes behelam echad, and then he was mafresh, he was neidole on echad, and he was mafresh the carbon. So that carbon is mechaper on both of them, even though there were two carbonas. It was lay neidole because since they were behelam echad, so once he's mafresh makriv a carbon for one, that we learned before ksira gereres ksira, ksira gereres tchina knows one carbon that was done behelam echad is mechaper on all of them, but that's only if there was neidole first. Because he was mafresh the carbon before neidole. Masha'inkin over here, if he was mafresh the carbon and then he was neidole, so then that neidole is not going to help. If he would have been makriv the carbon, it would have helped. But over here, he wasn't makriv the carbon; he was only mafresh the carbon. And now he was neidole on the second one, so now he's a chiyuv osham on the second one, and lepel he can't have that chiyuv osham with the one that was already neidole. Halacha zayin ala gezel ketzat. Kol mi sheyesh biyodei mishava pruto v'mayla mimomin Yisrael ben shegozlei, there was ma'asik zela ben shegonvei ben shevchidei etzlei, he got it beheter, there was a pikod a hilvo, he lent it to him a mishum shut v'se mishar derech. It makes no difference. Lepel, someone has money of someone else, it's lying by him someone else's money, and lepel, that person munded v'koffer bei v'nishbal sheker, he denied the money and he was nishbal sheker ben bezod ben mishgaga. So whether it was a zodn or a shgoga, this nishbal sheker. So the din is harevi mevi osham al chete. He has to bring an osham for this chet of the shvua shov, the shvua sheker about mammon. And v'zeu anikra asham gzelos. This is what's referred to as being asham gzelos. Umefurish b'teir she'mischapelei b'osham zeh ad sheyoshev ha'mammon shebiyodi lebolov. So this osham is not going to be mechaper on the aveir of the shvua sheker unless he returned the keren. But the chemish ain't a makar v'kapora. Notice he could go ahead and return the keren. The pale is supposed to return the keren and the chemish. But even if he returned the keren, he could still already be makar of the osham. One is ichayev an osham for this type of a shvur. Shemakar v'le osham. Zeh. When is ichayev an osham? What kind of shvur? What kind of situation? Emasai ichayev b'shvur zu. Shemakar v'le osham zeh. Ve'emasai yepater mimena. When is he potter from being makar v'nosham? V'alezi derech is chayev hasham esrabis kimin yechiyev hashvois. V'alezi derech liyechayev halosham. That's, so we learned about already a shivcha charufa, Hasham shivcha charufa, and we learned about Hasham gzelis. Now there's also Hasham neilis. Allah me'ila ketzad, kol hanena b'shava pruta, min ha'hegdish b'shgoga. He was nana min ha'hegdish b'shgoga, magzer mashenena, and also v'yesav chemish v'yakrav osham, v'yizchapro, that's called Hasham neilis. Ukvar bi'anu b'hilchas me'ila, shakorban v'akeren ma'akva kapora. In order to have the kapora, you have to bring the keren, and only then could you bring the carbon. Ve'ina chemish ma'akev, but the chemish is not ma'akev, so you could bring the carbon even before you brought the chemish. Halacha tes. Ha'eichel midover shemeilin bei, b'chamisha tamchin b'helam achas. Person went ahead and he was male in hegdish, and he ate it from 5 tamchin, from 5 different types of dishes. Notice he ate, it was behelam achas, he didn't realize in between that he was male, but he lepel ate from chamisha tamchin. Is afal pishim mizevach echad, it's from the same carbon. He ate from chamisha tamchin, and in each tamchin there was a shava pruta, is chayiv osham al kol echad ve'echad. So it's a special din by me'ila, that tamchin mechalkin, sha tamchin mechalkin be'ila, v'arehin kiminun harbe. It's as if he did separate averas, even though normally the chur is one avera that he's being moil behegdish, and lepel he was nana, it was one carbon, but nevertheless, since he ate it from chamisha tamkin, 5 different types of dishes, and each one was a shava pruta lefachis. So then he's chayiv chamish karbonis. Aval pi she'em mechalken b'chiyav krisus. As far as chiyav krisus is concerned, the fact that it was eaten in chamisha tamchin wouldn't be chayiv separate chatois. is chumra yiseri yesh b'meila. There's a special chumra b'negei meila. Shari also we see other chumras by meila. So also by a mahana kenena. By chaylev it says you ate chaylev. A person gets to eat chaylev someone else, so he's not chayav for the other person's eating chaylev. Masha'enki by meila when a person's nana mina hegdish, so he's chayav saya nana and saya mahana. And that's the chumra number one. And also mistaref is lizman meruba. By chaylev you have to eat a b'chdei achilas pras. Masha'enki meila you could eat a half a pruta today and a half a pruta tomorrow or even next year, as long as behel mechot. And also ushliach she'asa shlichus chayv mishalech. By meila normally the din is ein shlichus ledvar avera, but when again meila there's a special din of shliach she'asa shlichus chayv mishalech. Masha'ein dvar meila b'shar yisurim. So meila together with these chumras by meila that amahanas kenen, it's mistaref is zman meruba, and there's yesh shliach ledvar avera. There's another chumra. The chumra is that atam chuyin mechalke. So these are the three Avedas, and then there's also, as you said before, Hasham Mitzera. When he comes to Torah, he brings an Asham, and Aldar is a Nazir. A Nazir also, that was Nistame, also brings an Asham. Halacha Yud. Kol HaMechuyev Asham Vadai, Tzorech Sheyivoda Lecheti Tchila, V'achar Kach Yakriv Hashamai. Whereas he can't bring an Asham until he knows that he did the Avera. Aval Hikriv Kedem Sheyivoda. And the negdale achashe hikriv is ein. Let's say he wasn't sure. He thought maybe he was over, and he goes ahead and he figures, let me bring an osham. And then later on he realized he taka was over. So that's also he wasn't yoytze his osham without knowing that he did the avera. He has to be know about that he did the avera, and only then could he bring the osham. V'chol chet shechayav ol of osham vaday. When any of these chatoim that you're chayiv osham vaday is over there is echad amelech, v'echad kei mashuach, ishar ha'oretz shavbei. By Ibn Chatois we learned that there's a difference between a melech and a keim mashoch and shar hamoritz. Masha'inke b'negei osham asham is there's no difference. Halacha Yudalev kol chet shechayav of osham vadei im nestapikli maso eleo so potem niklum. Because there's no musig of an osham toli by an osham vadei. By a chatos there's a musig of an osham toli. Masha'inke by an asham is there's no musig of an osham toli lefichach. Al bo al yodi sofik meila in a chayiv klum. K'mishu b'yarnu b'hilchas milu. Hoysel ufanu chaticha shel chul v'chaticha shel hekdesh. And ochel achas man vein yudu eze he is potter. Because even though it's a suffix, it's a chazik yisura, so to speak, we know for sure there was hekdesh there, but he doesn't know if he ate the hekdesh. So he's potter. Now chazik v'ochel is a shneir. So now he knows for sure that he ate the shneir. Is maybe Ashim al mu'ulasi. Told me he ate the b'shegik. He ate the first b'shegik and the second b'shegik. Now ochel achas a shneir. He ate the first and the other one ate the second. So one of them definitely was male b'hegdish. The question is which one. So the din is shnei p'turim, because since each one is a suffix whether he was male, so each one is potter. You don't go ahead and say let's bring one for both of them. In other words, for Miman of Shach. You don't say each one is potter, because each one is a suffix. Halacha Yud Gimel chaticha shel chelev v'chaticha shel hegdish, and ochel achas man. You don't, and you ate one of them. There's a chaticha shel chelev and the chaticha shel hegdish. So the din is maybe Osham Toli Mishum Chelev. You have to bring Osham Toli Mishum Chelev, because you may have eaten Chelev, and so maybe you have to bring Osham Toli. Now, Ochal is Ashneir. You also ate the second. You ate the first, and then you ate the second. So then you don't bring an Osham Toli. I mean, if you brought an Osham Toli, you brought an Osham Toli. But if you didn't bring an Osham Toli, so what you, and even if you did bring an Osham Toli, so since now you ended up eating both, and Memela there was definitely Chelev there, is maybe Chatas ala Chelev, so you bring Chatas ala Chelev. And also, v'oshim v'adei shel mila lehegdish. You definitely were male b'hegdish. You were male b'shkoga. You were male b'hegdish b'shkoga. So you bring an oshim v'adei al mila shel hegdish. Now, that's talking about. So there was a cheticha shel chel v'cheticha shel hegdish. When you ate the first, so you're mechuyev v'chatas. When you ate the second, so you're mechuyev v'chatas plus an oshim. Now, bo achir v'achel sashneir. You ate the first, and someone else ate the second. Is afasheni maybe oshim toli. The other one also brings an oshim toli because maybe he ate chelev. But neither of them bring an Osham Vadi from Meila. That's the din by Chaticha Shel Chelev, Chaticha Shel Hegdish. Now Chaticha Shel Chelev and Chaticha Shel Chelev Hegdish, both of them were Chelev. One was regular Chelev, Chelev of Chulim, and the other one was Chelev of Hegdish. Is Ochel Achas Man, is maybe Chatas, because he definitely ate Chelev. Ochel is Ashniya, Achas Shenedel Al Rishena. Because if he was not Achas Shenedel Al Rishena, so he ate them both Me'elam Echad. But over here, he was Nedele al Rishena. He realized that he ate one chelev. And now it was again Nedele al Shneir. Then he ate the Shneir. So the din is maybe shnei chatois. He has to bring two chatois because he ate twice chaylev and it wasn't the helam echad. And also v'ashim vadi al milos. He has to bring an ashim because he definitely ate hegdish. Again, he ate them both b'shegig. He ate the first one b'shegig, the second one b'shegig. But now, looking back, he knows for sure he ate twice chaylev. And in the middle, he knew about the fact that he ate chaylev. And he also now knows that he ate, that he was nenemi hegdish b'shegig. Now, again, you have chaylev, and you have chaylev of hegdish. One of them ate one, and the other one ate the other. So zeh mevi chatas. This one brings a chatas. Zeh mevi chatas bilvad. Each one brings a chatas because they definitely ate chaylev. Neither of them bring an osham because neither of them know that they were male behegdish. Kfar biyanu behilchas macholas asuris me'ezet tam noisaf ikte hegdish al isur chaylev. As you're saying that there was a chaylev and hegdish, and for the chaylev yechayiv meila, and for the chaylev yechayiv koris, and for the hegdish yechayiv meila. So how is there an isur hegdish chal on chaylev? The chen kol kietz beilo yisur. And over there the pashtus is because the chaylev. First of all, the hegdish is chal on the whole behemoth. The hegdish is chal on the whole behemoth, and the chaylev was only on part of the behemoth. And also the hegdish is the isur, so that's an isur kelev. And then there's also the chaylev is only an isur achila. Masha'enki, the hegdish is also an isur hano, and that's an isur mesav. So therefore over here we say isur chalal isur v'chein kol kietzu be'elah isur.